So there's been something on my mind that I've wanted to share with you guys for some time. And, really there's no perfect time to share something like this. And I kept saying, oh, I'll do it in a couple months or I'll do it next week or whatever. But really, there's just no perfect time to say something like this. But a lot of people, they see where I'm at now and they see all the wins and they see the success. But a lot of people just really don't know where this all started for me. And it's really just because I haven't really shared it publicly, to be honest. The only people that I've shared this with have been close friends, close family members of mine. It's people that know me in person, right? But it's been a long time and I've done a lot of reflecting on this. And I feel like I'm finally in a place now where I can really just comfortably share this story with everybody. So let's rewind the clock just all the way back to the beginning. So, when I was young, I sort of had this, I don't know if you want to call it a problem, but just something that was going on with me genetically where I was always a bit like 2 or 3 years kind of behind the curve on growth and maturity. So, when I was 10 years old, I looked like I was 7 years old. When I was 13 years old, it looked like I was 10 years old, so on and so forth. But growing up, I really never let it bother me. I would always be doing things that were just designed for bigger people to do. Like I got into playing football. I was a safety on my football team. At the time, I probably only weighed about 50 pounds. This is back when I was in elementary school and whatnot. I chose to pick up the double bass as my instrument growing up. So even though I was a lot smaller than the people around me, I always picked these things that were designed for people that were much, much bigger, right? And I always had sort of this viewpoint like I was just a lot bigger than I was really. And, growing up, I always had a lot of friends and I was, one of the more popular kids in school and in elementary school and middle school. But around the time I got to high school, a lot of that kind of changed for me. When I got to high school, when I was, 14 years old or something, I literally looked like an 11-year-old with how big I was and how young I looked. And, a lot of the people in high school were even, ahead of the growth curve in maturity and stuff. So it really wasn't a chick magnet by any means. And it really did kind of hurt my self-confidence back in that day. And I entered high school with just an enormous amount of insecurities that, to be honest with you, I just wasn't equipped to deal with. I just hadn't figured out emotionally how to deal with all this stuff. And really all I wanted to do at that time was I wanted to just fit in and I wanted people to like me and I wanted to just kind of have people kind of care about me and stuff. But I really kind of chose the wrong path almost immediately when I got to high school. So some of the first people that I met were, in the quote unquote, popular crowd. But what a lot of kids were getting into in that crowd at that age were actually drugs, believe it or not, even at a very young age. And the people that I started to surround myself with over the course of my freshman year of high school and my sophomore year of high school, it all started out innocent, like a little bit of partying on the weekend, a little bit of drugs here and there. But, by my sophomore year of high school, I'd basically fully fallen into a crowd that was just really a rough crowd. I mean, people that just were really, not getting into the right stuff. And those were kind of who I was being influenced by. So what ended up, at first starting out being like something that maybe I did once a month, turned into something that I started doing once a weekend, to eventually starting to use drugs every single day. This is around the time that I was 15 years old. And, on paper, everything from the outside probably looked like it was good for me. Like on paper, I had some, these friends and, I was like a well-known guy in school and whatnot. People would invite me to all the parties and this and that. But deep down, I was heading down a path that was just so bad. I mean, every day using drugs. I had a lot of anxiety problems, social anxiety problems, and somebody introduced me to pills that I was taking to deal with this, and it was just an everyday thing. I mean, it became to the point of just just complete and utter despair, really, after just years of doing this stuff. And a lot of the friends that I was running with, a lot of them were getting arrested. Some of them went to jail. Others were going to rehab. And my whole life, after years of doing this, started to just sort of fall apart. And this is when I was 17 years old. And, just to give you a little bit of a background about the type of family I come from. So I grew up outside New York City in a suburb, and I came from, on paper, a perfect family. I mean, my parents loved me. They'd given me everything. We weren't rich by any means, but we definitely had enough money to pay all the bills, and there wasn't a whole lot of extra money to go around, but we were fine financially, right? So it's not like I came from a rough family, and all my parents did was love me and care about me, and everything that they gave me, I just was throwing away. Just didn't want anything to do with it, right? So it wasn't their fault at all. It was something inside of me that was bad, a character flaw, really, just something that I wasn't equipped to deal with at that age, really. So it was around when I was 17, like my parents really started to catch on about, okay, yeah, like we think Tyler's kind of on drugs. Like, what are we going to do about this? And my father, he does a lot of good work in the community. So for years, he's just been volunteering, helping people in the community. And he's a psychologist by profession. So once a week, my dad, and he still does this to this day, he goes to a rehab center in Bridgeport, Connecticut, that is basically for people that don't have any money, that are just coming off the streets, that might even be homeless. And the rehab center, it's completely donation supported. Um, and my dad goes there every single week for free, and he teaches an anger management class to the people that go there. So what my dad decided is that he wanted me to go to this place. And the people that were there were all adults. They were people that were 30, 40 years old that may have been in and out of rehab centers for the past 20 years, that may be homeless, that may be just coming from jail, that may be court ordered to be there. Those were the type of people that were at this place. And, I was 17 years old, and I shouldn't have even been there. It was for adults. I shouldn't have even really been allowed to be there. But my dad asked them if they would make an exception for me. And, it was just getting to the point where I had just gotten in so much trouble over the years with the police, and I'd been caught so many times doing drugs that it was just getting to a breaking point where my dad told me, like, look, Tyler, either you're going to clean up your act and you're going to stop using drugs, or I'm not going to let you live in the house anymore at this point. So I was like, okay, fine. Like, I'll go, I'll try it out or whatever. And he wasn't going to send me for months and months on end. He wanted me to go for 2 weeks just to, scare me straight, basically, right? So, here I am. I show up at the door. I've got a backpack of clothes or whatever. And this treatment center, it was basically just a single family home where in the bottom floor there was kind of a living room area where everybody could sit. And then upstairs there was beds. And there was no walls. There was no doors. It was just everybody would sleep together in the same room, kind of bunk style, side by side. One of my roommates was there because he had overdosed on Xanax and was smoking a cigarette while he passed out. That when he passed out, it burned down his apartment, and he was court ordered to be there, just as part of whatever he was going through related to that. My other roommate was a gang member that had been in and out of gangs his entire life and had spent the past 6 years in jail and was court ordered to be there by the jail. And my other roommate was a heroin addict of 30 years who had been in and out of treatment his entire life and was just there to try to, improve himself, I guess. But when I got there, everybody there was just sort of shocked that I was even there. They were like, "What are you doing here, man? Like, you know, you've got it all. You've got a family that loves you. Your dad is such a great person. We see him every week here. He's helping us. Like, what's going on with you that you're so messed up, right?" And here's this guy that's, been in a gang his whole life that just got out of jail, and he's telling me to get my shit together. And there was nothing I could say because he was absolutely right. So really over the course of the next 2 weeks, it was just a pivotal point in my life where I almost got a glimpse into what could potentially happen if I kept going down the path that I was on. And it was during that time that everything started to pivot for me mentally. I realized that I didn't want to keep doing what I was doing. I realized that if I was going to continue what I was doing, that this is probably where I would end up. And, I just didn't want to do it, right? So I finished it up. I got out of there. It was just 2 weeks, but I learned a lot during those 2 weeks. And after that, I was going into my senior year of high school. So I was still really young, still 17 years old. And it was around that time that my brother Peter really stepped into my life in a major way and started to kind of guide me in the right direction. So my brother Peter, he's always been an entrepreneur. By the time I was 17, he had already started 2 different companies. He had started a landscaping company that he had, clients all around town to mow their lawn and whatnot. He had started a guitar teaching company where he had people coming over paying him, $100 an hour to teach him guitar and whatnot. And he was doing that every day. So my brother was really just a superstar. And by the time that I was going into my senior year of college, my brother is 3 years older than me. So he was sort of midway through college. And he was already starting to figure out how to make money online. So he had bought some courses and he had met some people that were making money online. And he had started his first online business doing affiliate marketing, which is still what we do today. And around that time, I just really had this void in my life because I'd been doing all this bad stuff. I just had this sort of a life-changing experience at this rehab center. And now I was just ready for something else, but I didn't know what I wanted to do. I just was in this void of what now, And it was around that time that my brother Peter really took me under his wings. And I went up to his house the following weekend and I started to learn what he was doing. And my brother started to mentor me that weekend, and he taught me exactly what he was doing to make money online. And that was it. I just knew I was all in after that. I knew that I needed a new purpose for my life. I needed a new plan. And what I'd been doing up to that point was not working for me. So it was that weekend that Peter and I went into business together. And it was really that weekend that changed my entire life, really. So it wasn't an immediate success. So, it wasn't until about 2 or 3 years later of Peter and I sort of grinding together that we really had a breakthrough. But, basically what happened was I ended up leaving Connecticut. So I knew I had to just get out of there. Fortunately, I had still managed to kind of keep my grades together and whatnot when I was in college, and I'd really picked up my act my senior year of college after I got out of rehab. and, just got straight A's in everything I was doing and nailed my SATs. And I ended up getting into a pretty decent college, College of Charleston in South Carolina. So already my life was starting to turn around significantly. I started this new business. I just got into college. So I just decided to just get out of town. So I just left Connecticut and I moved down to South Carolina to start my new life. And I really started with a clean slate because anybody that I knew from growing up that was a positive impact around me, like friends of mine growing up, from my younger days, they had all completely abandoned me, during all that drug heyday. And anyone that was a negative impact on my life, I had cut out of my life. So I was really starting just from a completely clean slate when I was 18 and I moved down to South Carolina. And it was just at that point that a new chapter began. So here I am, I'm in college now, I'm in my dorm room, and I'm hustling because my parents, they could only really afford to give me about $300 a month for food. And, if you've ever been to Charleston, South Carolina, $300 isn't going to last you more than a week. So I had to figure out how to make money, and I was sitting in my dorm room for 4 to 6 hours a day just researching different ways to make money online. And I was trying so many different things, and none of it was really working for me, but I was so determined to make it work that I just pushed through for years. So all of, my senior year of high school, all of freshman year of college, and all of sophomore year of college, I was just trying to figure out what to do. And fortunately, around my sophomore year of college, Peter and I, we really hit on a business. And it was the first time that we really had some real success. And we were doing lead generation for a mortgage company. And yeah, 2015 was the year that happened. It was like my sophomore, junior year of college. And everything changed. Our company did $3 million in revenue that year. I'm just a sophomore in college, right? So it was incredible money for me. And, it was at that point that I just started to gain a lot of confidence. I was like, all right, now I finally sort of feel like I know what I'm doing. I feel like I have more of a purpose and I feel like I have more of a plan for my life. So really what happened from there is I just ran even harder and I pushed even harder into business and had even more success over the years to come. And, now it's 2020. It's been 5 years since that initial success and things have been just going phenomenally. Right now we have 25 people on our team. Our company's revenue is in the 8 figures. So I can truly say that my life has completely changed since that time. And, what I recommend for people that have a similar story, let's say that you've struggled with drugs and alcohol, you can use that for your advantage. So I realized that I sort of had an addictive personality, but I was just using it on the wrong things. Instead of using that for good, I was basically using that addiction to kill myself, right? But it wasn't until I sort of reframed my thinking that I realized that, if I wanted to win, I had to become addicted to success. I had to become addicted to learning how to make money. I had to get addicted to taking action. And I had to get addicted to just progressing in general. Working out harder, having better relationships. Those are the type of things that I fueled that addictive energy into. And that's when my life really started to change. So I know this is a lot to share with you guys. So, it's not easy for me to share this with you either. I've never shared this publicly with anyone. So if you have a similar story, let me know. You don't have to comment publicly, but just reach out privately. I'd love to hear about what you're going through. And I'd love to see if I could even give you some insight as far as how you can improve that situation. So anyways, I hope that you enjoyed this story, and I'll talk to you soon.